Hey guys, today I'm going to be reviewing for you a Game of Thrones card game, second edition. And, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it first, the basics, and then we'll talk a little bit about it at the end, what I think. So here is the 8 starting banner cards with the decks they put underneath it, and I'll show you one of them, for example, in just a second here. But the 8 houses that you start with in the game, you have House Baratheon, House Lannister, House Greyjoy, Targaryen, Night's Watch, Tyrell, Stark, and Martell. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of these. Let's grab these Lannisters because they're pretty interesting. Now they're all broken up into some pretty simple things. Basically, there's only a couple types of cards. There's like locations and attachments, which are a card that you attach to a character, and then you have the characters themselves. And each character, let me just grab a couple of good ones. Here's Jaime, that's a good one. And then, oh, of course, let's do some Jaime and Cersei right here. Okay, so on these cards, like in most games, you'll have the flavor text down here telling you what bonuses or what reactions or what happens when you play these cards. Off to the right here, I'll show you the banner that these are Lannisters playing the Lannister deck and so forth. So the very top number up here is how much gold it costs to get this character into play. And then there's going to be these challenges symbols. There could be up to 3 different challenges that this character can participate in. And then there's the power number, basically your power in each challenge that you do. So whether you do offense, defense, or whatever, you'll have these different challenges you can try. So it's pretty simple and straightforward, how the cards work. The cards that are what they call unique have a little target symbol off to the left of them. So basically when that character, if it is killed, is actually put not in the discard pile, but a dead pile. So that character can no longer be played the rest of the game, assuming you have multiple copies, I guess, of the card in there. All right, so that's basically the easy breakdown. There's locations that you can go to that put things into perspective, like it'll give you bonuses, but like there's cards that say limited on them, which means you can only play one limited card each turn. And then, like I said, there's attachments, things that you can attach to other characters in the game here. So let's just go ahead and put the Lannisters back. I'll just put Cersei on top. I hope that's okay. I know that Jaime doesn't mind that. All right, so, and then you have basically some different cards. These are like title cards you use in the melee. But another big part of the game are these plot cards. And they're really cool because there's like 7 steps in the game, starting with plot. So you'll not only have your faction deck that you have there, the house deck that you build, that you can mix in some regular cards with, but you'll have this plot deck. And each plot deck will have different things on it, like it'll show you that this takes 6 gold, or you will gain 6 gold at the beginning, which you use that money to purchase characters to bring in. This shows you the initiative. If you win the initiative, you get to say whether your opponent goes first or you go first each round. And this is the claim number. So basically when you issue these challenges, like Cersei here can do an intrigue challenge or a power challenge. So they do different things, but the claim shows you how much you will claim off of it. Most of them say 1. There's a couple that say 2. In the starter one, I don't think there's anything that has 2 on it, but Cersei actually boosts her ability when she does an intrigue challenge. If she's a part of it and they win, then she would push that claim number up to 2, and so therefore she would win 2 of those. But the plot cards, which are pretty cool, is each player chooses 7 of them, and then they put them down at the beginning. You actually don't have to draw them random. You pick it up and you choose which plot you're going to get. So there will be text of what's going on here. These are usually different schemes or things going on. Like this one says, when revealed, choose an opponent, you gain 1 gold for each character that player controls. So if you know that this doesn't give you a lot of gold, but it gives you a higher initiative to choose who goes first. But this will give you some stuff on that, some bonuses. There's all kind of cool things like wildfire assault. If your opponent starts having too much characters out there, this one, it says when it's revealed, each player chooses up to 3 characters he or she controls, and then kill each character not chosen. So basically, you can save 3 characters. At the very end of the round, there's a taxation phase, and this number shows how many cards you have to get your hand down to if you have not yet. So that's a very interesting thing. So at the beginning, you'll be able to choose those. We'll walk through the phases real quickly here in a second. But basically, you have the house, you know, your main clan cards, and then you have these plot cards, which is a separate plot deck that you get to choose plots out of. Like I said, you have these title cards, but they're, excuse me, more for the melee stuff going on. And then you have all these other stuff that you can mix in that are kind of neutral cards that you can mix into your deck, like neutral locations, neutral riders that can go in either deck. You know, here's Littlefinger. He's not really affiliated with anybody, so you can put him in here. His bonus is he gives you +1 gold. Here's an attachment condition. Look at the poppy. It says terminal. A treat attached characters printed text box as if it were blank. So basically, you're blanking out all the abilities of that character. But there's little things that you can play, and then they have little surprise things called events. If a card says an event on it, like this one here says put it to the torch, it's a reaction to something that happens. There's cards that let you instantly pop another card into play. But anyway, that's the long and the short of it. It's pretty simple. You know, you have these type of cards here for your house and banners and whatnot, and then you have your plot deck, and then you have the other cards to build your deck. So you and your opponent in a jousting match, which they call a 2-player game, you will match up versus each other. You will compete for set versus the first person to get to what is 15 power. Yeah, I was just going to show you a few of these components real quick. So the game comes with the first player token. It comes with all these little power tokens. It comes with a slew of these gold pieces. And it comes with these double-sided kind of stamp cards, so you can keep track. There's times where you need to like put a token on something, so it's easy to use that to keep track of. All right, I want to jump to you basically real quick through the phases here. And the first phase is the plot phase. So you're going to take one of those plot cards I was telling you about, and you and your opponent are both going to choose them simultaneously, and then simultaneously reveal them. And then you'll look at the if there's anything in the card reaction that says that you need to do, that you will go ahead and do that. And then you'll choose initiative. If there's a tie, there's tiebreaker rules. It's pretty simple. Then you basically collect your gold. At the very beginning of the game, I should have mentioned this, I forgot. At the very, very beginning, there's a setup procedure where you automatically put 8 gold worth of cards into play. Characters, location, and attachments if needed. And basically, you put those all face down, and then you reveal them, and that's what you start off with. So you don't have to start off putting them in immediately. You both automatically start off with 8 gold worth of characters in the game. So the first phase is the plot phase after the setup, and then after you both reveal the plot and determine who goes first, you take turns going. So like your opponent, well, first of all, you draw. So your opponent will draw 2 cards, and then you'll draw 2 cards. And if you chose them to have the first player token, let's just pretend they have the first player token. So then it comes to marshalling, which is putting cards into play. So you're on your player's turn, he will marshal in all their cards that they wish to marshal, and then they're done. And then it comes to you, and then you put all your cards that you want to pay for with the gold that you received into play, and that phase is done. Then you move to the fourth one, which is challenges, which is the meat of the game. So let's say here you had a bunch of characters, and on your turn you can choose one of each of the 3 different challenges, which is military, which is the sword, intrigue, which is the eyeball, or a power challenge. So basically, if I had these 2 characters, I can go, all right, I can look at my opponent, you know, compared to what cards they have over there, and I'll say, these 2 are participating together in the intrigue challenge, because they both have the intrigue challenge, and so you would nil them, which is tapping, as we all know, and you would say, okay, so when it comes down to it, basically you compare the powers. Like this, 5 and 4 is 9, and then your opponent has the opportunity to try to block you. Now, you're not killing like in other games unless you get to a military icon, but I'll explain that in a second. So let's say this is an intrigue challenge. So let's say the other opponent decides to block with a character, and let's just grab somebody out of here. It's like, oh, I will attempt to participate Sansa Stark. So you actually have to tap her, per se, or nil her, and then this is the battle. So basically, 9 versus 2 power, and they'll win the intrigue challenge. So what you do is you check that plot card that you had early on that you put into play, and it says that your claim is 1. Now for intrigue, you make the other player discard randomly the claim number on your plot. So they would discard 1 card, except that Cersei, when she participates in it, her special ability says that you would raise the claim value by 1. So your opponent in this case the start people will have to discard 2 cards from their hand. Now you're like, well, why am I even blocking? Because I'm not killing this character. It's just a challenge, right? I should just leave her straight up. Well, there's 2 reasons. Well, she has a special ability. At the end of the phases, there's where you stand the characters up. She has an ability that gives you 1 power. And the first person who gets 15 of these tokens wins the game. Or if your opponent runs out of cards, they lose the game. Now, the most important reason is if you have an unchallenged, well, you do run into you're unopposed during one of your challenges, you not only do you win it, that you get the claim value of the effect of the whatever the challenge is, like this is intrigue, so making them discard cards. But if it's unopposed, then you get a free extra power. So normally you don't get this, but it's like, okay, and that usually just goes right on your banner unless it otherwise stayed. So, okay, now let's pretend we're just going to do a power challenge. I'm going to say add a character, and I'm going to, oh, I'm coming over with Cersei. Coming over, sorry. All right, yeah, so usually the old magic rules attack. But let's say you're coming over, and you're like, I'm going to do a power challenge with Cersei. Well, okay, let's say Sansa's already tapped maybe something from previous or whatever, and so you choose not to block. Now, the reward in a power challenge is that you get to take whatever the claim reward is off your card, off of the opponent's banner, and put it onto your banner. So if they have nothing, then it would obviously do you no good. But unless it's unopposed, because if they do not oppose it, or somehow by the end of resolving conflict that they have 0 power, it's considered unopposed, then you will get 1 from the supply, a power from the supply. So the power challenge gives you, you're trying to get power tokens. The intrigue challenge, when you go up against that, gives you intrigue tokens. And the military is killing characters. So where did I put let's just say Neddard Starks here. Okay, somebody sends Neddard over, and let's say it's the other player's turn. They pass. They decide not to do a military challenge. But during the course, maybe they knelt all the characters that had the military icon, right? Let's say that the Lannisters had, they had saved somebody, maybe like a Cersei, but she can't block, she can't participate in the challenge because she doesn't have a military icon, right? So it's like, I'm going to do a military challenge with maybe this and maybe another guy. I don't know, because you might have an event in your hand that could pop a character into play or something. Well, let's just say, oh, well, Team Lannister doesn't have anybody. So it's like, okay, well, I can't do anything about it. And even if they could block, if they win because of the power, the reward for this is whatever the claim value is on the plot card, whatever, let's say theirs was 1, which is very typical. Then that means as a defending player, I have to choose one of my characters to kill. Now, and somehow if there's a bonus to give it a raise, then I would have to kill 2 of my characters. And also the rule with the power also kicks in is if it's unopposed or my power ends up being 0, then but if you repel them, then I have to get up an extra power. But if you end up repelling them, like let's say you win the challenge, like I don't know, let's see, where's one of my Lannister people that I like to mess with here. Okay, let's just say you decide. Let's say there was a couple of people. Let's say this card was attacking for the Lannisters, and you decided to block with this card here. Okay, well, that's 3 power, blocked by 5 power, and when you compare that challenge, well, the defender wins that challenge. All it means is nothing happens, but both cards are tapped for it. So that's pretty straightforward. I know it's kind of rambling a little bit on there about it, but that's basically the meat of the game is the challenges. So you're trying to choose who goes first, choose your plots, you marshal in, those are the challenges. Now, the last 3 phases are the phase 5 is called dominance. So what happens is you look at your side and your opponent's side, and you all add up the number, how much power you have of characters that are not knelt or tapped, right? And that, and plus whatever gold coins you haven't spent that turn, and you get a number. If your number is greater than your opponent's number, then you gain a power for your side. And there's plots that maybe give you a bonus 2 power for having dominance that turn. That's your whole job, is like, hey, I'm just trying to get dominance there. But if your opponent has more power, then they will gain, excuse me, here I'm holding a different token, then they will gain a dominance, a power token. And so that's the dominant stage. And then number 6 out of 7 is if there's any cards that are knelt, then you stand them back up, which is untapping. You do that like, whoever's the first per token would unnil theirs first, or stand them up, and you would stand yours up. And the last one is called taxation, which you go to. It's kind of like the cleanup phase. So basically, you discard all your gold back into the supply, and you take off your plot card the number again on the bottom right. You have to make sure that you discard down to this number here. And that's pretty much just a simple walkthrough here. I know it's kind of blabbering a little bit on the game, but let's go back up top, and I'm going to tell you what I think about it. Okay, so that was the basics of how to play. There's a lot more detail you can look up online and whatever, but I have to say, I was kind of intrigued by this. I really like the idea of the 3 different types of challenges you can do. You can do one of each type of challenge on your turn, and there's even some plots that break the rules that let you do maybe a second challenge of something else. But there's a lot of thought put into it. You have to decide. It's important to choose, like, oh, maybe I should let them go first if you win initiative, or just even choosing the plot card of what you want, because basically you have the 7 plot cards at the beginning, and they're random. Like, you would choose your own, and so they may not even know what you have, and then you're like, which one do I even choose to start off? You might have a game plan, but maybe that'll change based upon what happens. So even like the characters you decide to marshal into play, and then deciding even if you block, because like if you choose that they go first, what do you leave standing and what do you leave knelt? Because if you block something or participate in a challenge, you leave those characters knelt, so you won't be able to send those over into a challenge. So you have to weigh it out, like, what are you giving up, and then what are you getting back in return? What is the ultimate goal? How do you benefit the most out of it? And I really like that. Like I said, if you've played any other games like Magic or Netrunner or anything, this is there's a lot of little rules. Luckily, Fantasy Fight puts out these 2 little things that they've been doing now for a while, where you have like the learners like play with kind of guide, and like your first play kind of whatever, and then you have a rules reference that break down everything. So yeah, if you're going to play this, you're definitely going to need some more packs. But luckily, it's not like what I like to call the magic hole, where you have to chase all these cards. It's just like, hey, if I want to buy this expansion pack, you get all 60 cards out of the pack, and then you're set for that that one until you buy another pack. So it's pretty good. So I mean, I really enjoyed my playthrough of this game, and I'm hoping to get a few of my friends really try to interest in it, but I don't know if they're going to enjoy it. So I may buy a couple of packs just to make a couple of challenge interesting decks, so see if they like it. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't rate it this high as Dice Masters, but it's pretty good. It definitely gets the approval from me. Thanks for watching the Dice Matrix, and until next time, friends, keep the dice rolling.